Good morning. Welcome to the meeting of the Kent County Board of Commissioners. I will start the meeting by asking that we take a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Wooden. Here. Womack. Teal. Here. Sparks. Skaggs.
Here.
Ponstein.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
McLeod.
Here.
LeGrand.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Jones. Hennessy.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Burl.
Here.
Volkowski.
Present.
Vice Chair Breeby. Here. Commissioners Bolter.
Here.
Antor. Chair Steck.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 members present and 3 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'll now call on Commissioner Green for our invocation.
Thank you, Chair. I had asked a faith leader from my district to join us this morning. He had to tend to his flock at the last minute, so unfortunately you get me. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we gather to attend to the business of our community, Kent County. Grant that every public servant in our community may treat the rich and the poor, the young and the old, the educated and the uneducated with dignity and fairness. May we serve without prejudice or partiality in times of prosperity or poverty, peace or war. O God, may every public servant be a person of integrity, relatability, and commitment, one who serves out of a sincere compassion, never seeking personal gain, status, or prestige. May we make every effort to make our county, state, and nation not only a better place to live, but a place known for its mercy, justice, righteousness, and fairness, a place where liberty and freedom may flourish. Give each of us knowledge, insight, courage, and strength. May we know right from wrong, when to be flexible and when to be firm. Stand beside us today, so that we shall not, to win a point, lose our souls. Heavenly Father, be merciful to our great land and to those who lead us in our communities, states, and national government. Give to each a sense of calling. May each put a high value on justice, righteousness, honesty, and service. May all have a pure heart and the peace and joy of knowing they have taken the high road. We ask that you continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our next item of business is special order of business, and we have with us today for our first item on the John Ball Zoo, Peter D'Arenzo. Thank you to start with that presentation, and we will go from there. Good morning, Peter.
Morning. Thank you, Chair Stack. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Alan. I put together a slide deck, and in the interest of keeping this brief, it's always challenging to choose what are the most important things I want to convey. So I'm sure I've missed things that might be on your mind. I encourage you to ask questions on anything, not just what's in the slide deck when we get to the Q&A. This is part of our annual update. That is part of our lease operating agreement with the county to provide an update on the state of the zoo. Today I'd like to talk about a general overview of the zoo, who we are, and why zoos matter or why zoos should matter, our impact, an update on our deferred maintenance, economic impacts, and then hoping what you'll find exciting what's on the horizon. John Ball Zoo is a large zoo with over 100 acres. We're less than 2 miles from downtown Grand Rapids, and we're in the heart of West Side. We should celebrate that, cherish that. There are very few zoos around the country that are actually located in a vibrant community. We're the ideal or textbook definition of a public-private partnership. We're a nonprofit with a lease operating agreement from the county. All assets belong to the county, and all new assets, such as new animal habitats that we build, are transferred to the county. As a matter of fact, By the end of next year, we will have transferred almost $30 million in assets to the county. In return, the zoo does receive generous public funding through a Kent County millage. Speaking of funding, our sources of revenue come from three areas. There's earned revenue, which is our largest, 54%. That includes membership, which historically was recorded under fundraising. Or in the past, the county asked for it to be recorded under fundraising, but our fundraising is so robust now, I thought it was more authentic to put it under earned revenue. Our fundraising makes up 21% of our total budget, and that is smoothed out over 5 years since we're in the middle of a capital campaign. And then, of course, we receive 25% of our funding through the millage, which replaces the county funding that we used to receive. So why do zoos matter? Zoos do a lot of things, from conservation work, scientific research, being a leader in sustainable practices. But zoos are also places where families come together, where loved ones spend time to connect with nature, to learn about wildlife. They're fun places, places for celebration. They're also a zoo for all, create experiential learning opportunities, and they're a major economic driver in a region, creating jobs, and being a tourist destination, they're jobs that can't be outsourced. And this really isn't surprising when more people go to zoos each year than the combined attendance of professional football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. From an impact standpoint, our attendance has grown dramatically over the last several years. Last year, we did 595,000 guests. This year, we expect to be right at 600,000, and that includes about 20,000 K through 12 students that came as school groups, which is part of our millage promise. And our JUMP program has grown immensely. Our JUMP program is free admission to the zoo for those with a Michigan Bridge card. And we expect to be right around 75,000. From a conservation standpoint, I'm really pleased about the work we're doing with the Powasheen skipperling, which is a small butterfly native to Michigan. According to the Michigan DNR, that animal is now extinct in the wild. Fortunately, we had the foresight a couple years ago to collect a few wild specimens, and we now have over 1,000 of them at the zoo, and we hope to reintroduce them back into the wild. We've done many things like this over the years. Next year, we're undertaking an ambitious Snuffbox mussel project with the state. We do research on lake sturgeon and more. And we also do hands-on conservation science learning through KCTC. We're a world leader in sustainability. The zoo achieved Gold Sites 2.0, first zoo in the world, and the first of any business in the state of Michigan. We also executed a very innovative stormwater project. We can handle more than a 100-year storm event on site without that water overflowing and entering the city system. That represents over 35 million gallons of stormwater per year. This year, we also undertook with Fishback a deferred maintenance audit. The last time this was done was in 2013, and the 2013 report focused only on public pathways, public areas. This one covered all county assets, animal habitats, support areas, etc. Our current total deferred maintenance is $45.5 million. The areas in red are the critical areas. Now, I show this to you not because I am not suggesting that we should take care of that $45 million in deferred maintenance. Because if we did, we would have buildings that are literally decades old with great roofs, great AC. They're not going to drive tourism. They're not going to drive economic development. They're not going to create a place for families to gather and be in awe and wonder of the natural world. We do that by replacing these assets with new assets, such as some I'm going to show you in a few minutes, that will drive that tourism, and we do that through fundraising. So we would replace much of these deferred maintenance items with new structures. Yes, some of it does need to be maintained, but the path forward is modernizing the zoo. To that effect, we've decided to organize the zoo into different zones. These are the same zones that are in the 2015 county-approved master plan, with the exception of the waters of the world and the tropical zone. So we've organized the zoo into Africa, the Americas, Australia, and the Asian forests to take people on a journey around the world about the exotic life that exists around the world. But we also felt, being true to our sustainability roots, that we need to tell a story about water, about wildlife's connection to water, society's connection to water. And I know we live in the Great Lakes state. We have so much fresh water. But the story we tell is, what does clean water mean to wildlife and to people, to society? And we don't have clean water everywhere in the state of Michigan, so it's an important story to tell. The South American tropics is another important biome to tell. The Amazon rainforest is an amazing carbon capture system and turns carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, into oxygen. So that also is an important story to tell, and it's why these are up front to tell our conservation story. We also undertook an economic impact study. We hired zoo advisors, the same firm the county hired for the county zoo merger. It's also the same firm that is conducting the aquarium feasibility study. And we focused on new wealth being brought into Kent County, not economic activity. Total economic activity is actually a much higher number, but I think it can be disingenuous because it talks about money moving within the county and new money. The numbers I'm about to show you are only new wealth coming into the county. Currently, every year, the zoo brings $92 million of wealth into Kent County, each and every year. Our activities also generate $4.8 million in additional state and local tax revenue. Much of that is through the sales tax, which gets redistributed back to the local municipalities. Many of our guests, we have guests from all 50 states, and they travel from far enough away that 175,000 of them stay the night in a hotel in Kent County. As with many organizations, organizations have made many ARPA requests, and I can only imagine how difficult it must be to select which projects to fund. The zoo itself has also submitted an ARPA request, and if that is approved, the economic impact from construction represents $162 million, 833 new jobs, and $6 million in additional state and local tax revenue. Now, that's only during the few years that construction is happening. The ongoing, each and every year, due to the incremental attendance generated by these world-class habitats, will create $25 million of additional impact and $1.7 million of additional tax revenue and over 200 new jobs. That creates a total annual economic impact well north of $100 million. This also represents the largest economic impact in the state of Michigan outside of Detroit for a cultural arts destination. What's on the horizon? Pygmy hippos, the wild waste South American primate. So the pygmy hippos are obviously pygmy hippos, but also Sitatunga, European storks. Wild Way Trail is howler monkeys, sloths, tortoise, and more. The ARPA projects will bring giraffes, modernize otter habitat, flamingos, conservation education center, over 40,000 square feet to provide hands-on learning for Kent County students, and a full build-out of the park. We have to be good neighbors to the west side while we serve West Michigan. This is the most significant investment in the park in 100 years. The county and the community has also challenged us that the zoo used to be open in the winter. So I want to demonstrate that we're listening to those requests and we're developing a plan for that. I don't have a whole lot to show you, but we're trying to create enough density of habitats that create a winter experience. So this is the pygmy hippo habitat, and this is the most ambitious project that the zoo's undertaken since the construction of the Van Andel Aquarium in the center of the zoo. This will represent all new major exhibits in order to capture that market share, have to be in the top 10% of habitats built in the United States. We think this is going to be the #1 pygmy hippo habitat in the United States. Why does that matter? Because our direct competitors are not Potter Park, Binder Zoo. Our direct competitors are the Fort Wayne Zoo, the Indianapolis Zoo, the Detroit Zoo, the Cincinnati Zoo. Matter of fact, if you take all the zoos in the state of Michigan combined, with the exception of Detroit Zoo, we exceed their attendance and annual economic impact. So they're not our competitors. Our competitors are zoos in other states. The Wild Way Trail, during our last AZA accreditation, which I'm pleased to say we achieved, we are the first zoo in the state of Michigan to achieve AZA accreditation. We have also never lost our AZA accreditation. Unfortunately, the current howler exhibit has enough deferred maintenance that it did not meet the AZA standards, so we're in the process of redesigning the current howler habitat into a world-class facility with multiple species, parallel play for children, and where the howlers can move around the guests in a protected structure, of course. We don't want them running around the west side. We're also developing a world-class giraffe habitat. This giraffe habitat will have an experiential component where guests can feed giraffes. Giraffes eat all the time, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for guests to feed. This gives you an idea of the scale of this project. The redesign of the new entry, which we need to put together an update to the master plan, and that is due no later than 2025 per our lease operating agreement. But what we're really excited about this is we're trying to be very low impact on the land, stay low to the ground, use a lot of green sustainable methods, including green roofs, which will help it blend into the hillside. Most importantly, because we're a conservation-based organization, but we're also good neighbors to the west side. So this is the front entry. Also one of the projects submitted for the ARPA. This is the guest support admissions building. Gift shop, which will generate the additional earned revenue to help maintain county assets. This is the otter habitat, which is next to the current pygmy hippo habitat, very naturalistic. This is the flamingo habitat. The flamingo habitat has an opportunity for feedings as well. Very few zoos have done that. This comes from the community work group that we did in 2018, where we sent a mailer out to 5,000 homes in the west side. You've seen this map before in a prior update, but I've included it because it's part of the ARPA ask. In this is moving the road away from the fountain so the public can safely walk around the fountain. It includes manicured botanical gardens with flowering plants, bike trails, walking trails, new athletic courts, reflective sculpture garden, 2 covered picnic shelters, a band shell twice the size of the old one, additional restrooms in the park that are winterized, and the exact location of the restroom and the band shells to be determined. Our intent is to engage the neighbors adjacent to the park and come up with a solution that meets everyone's needs. Regarding the winter zoo, we're focused on the bottom right section of the zoo with the pygmy hippo habitat, the current aquarium, the cold hardy animals such as red pandas and tigers, and the new South American forests, tropical forests. There is no funding for this. This is many years out. What I'm trying to articulate is we're listening to the community, and as we build new assets in the front entry, we're making sure those assets can be part of the winter zoo. Why the front entry? Clearing snow is very expensive. So the less linear feet we have to clear, the better, hence the front entry. That's all of it. What questions do you have?
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you for that informative presentation. I suspect we have some questions. We'll start with Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair. Just maybe a little plug, as I have a 22 and 25-year-old now, but when they were children, big fans of the zoo. Great Christmas gift is a zoo membership. So again, nice little plug, and it helps the zoo.
Thank you, it does. Membership's very important to our success.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Back a couple of years ago, I think, there was work on the Large Carnivore Act, right, in Michigan. And I know there were hopes that once that act passed, the zoo would be capable of breeding some tigers. How's that program coming along?
Going well. We had an older tiger that we transferred to another zoo, brought in a younger tiger that is within breeding age. We're actually in the process of doing introductions. Tigers are solitary animals, so the introduction process is a long and lengthy one. If it's not in the wild, tigers may actually kill their mates. So it's a very careful introduction process that is literally going on as we speak. If it's successful, we may have something exciting to report next year. Thank you.
Can't resist, but speaking of old tigers, Commissioner Morgan.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I don't know how to respond to that, but good morning, Peter.
Morning.
Been around long enough because I'm an old tiger. That it was always our hope to make this a regional attraction. It seems like we're moving that way. And I have a question. Back in about 2015, we did a master plan, and you said it may be updated in 25 according to your goals and your forecasts. Are you following that master plan
That
that we did back in 2015? Because Sharkey Whittle up in Rockford used to say, plan your work your plans. So,
Right. So everything that is being constructed now is in alignment with the master plan. And are they the exact same animals? No. And for example, with the pygmy hippo habitat, in that spot is supposed to be a bear habitat. And we presented the plans to Wayman, and Wayman said this is not materially different than the master plan, so we moved forward. There is a process with every construction project that we do. We have to demonstrate how it aligns with the master plan, show that we have funding for it before we can proceed, and it's laid out in our lease operating agreement. In the current master plan that we've worked with the community, there are many changes to that. So that's why it needs to be approved by my board. And I tend to be overly transparent, so I don't think I'm getting ahead of my board, because my board has seen all the materials, but they haven't formally voted on it right now. That vote is scheduled to occur next month. And in that master plan, what is most dramatically different, I would say, is the park. The current master plan has paved parking out front. It has less required, and I'm using the word required because currently there's a lot of green space. But the current master plan that's approved only requires roughly 2 acres of green space up front against Valley. What we're proposing has a total of 20 acres of green space dedicated. Now, I want to draw the distinction that I am making the comparison to the current approved master plan, not what's currently on site. To find a balanced path forward to grow, we engaged 5,000 homes and did several design meetings with community partners, Kent County Parks, city parks, architectural firms, neighborhood association, and community members. And we put together the largest investment plan for the park in 100 years. Now, I will say that the overwhelming majority of the community loves the plan because they see a universally, or those that came to the design sessions, they see a universally designed playground, new band shell, picnic shelters, the space for multiple soccer fields, or I guess people play football, football or soccer fields, basketball, tennis courts, walking trails, manicured gardens, and a commitment to allocate money in our budget for park events. Our intent is to, once this build out is done, to create a volunteer group made up of neighbors, and we provide an annual fund for them to program whatever they want. They want to do weekly concerts in the park, it's their decision. They want to do theater in the park, maybe live music, food, whatever they want to do, it's their park. And this is part of us being good neighbors to the west side. So short answer is, it's different, but it increases the amenities and the space that's green dramatically compared to the current plan. But it is different than what's physically out in the park. Right now, it's an undeveloped green space where we park cars.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Thank you.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Calling back to the slide, you were forecasting new wealth coming in based on this park improvement plan, if I recall correctly.
Correct.
And how are you modeling the new attendance? You may have shown that and I just did not notice it. Like, is it based on a expected capture based on every, like, is there almost like a market study for every exhibit?
Yeah, a great question. So this model is assuming an extra 200,000 people to the zoo, and that's based on looking at our current market penetration. If you look at the population of the MSA, it's just over 1 million people. And West Michigan's actually grown at a substantially quicker rate than the zoo. So if we achieve average market penetration, not above average, average market penetration, the zoo should be at around 1 million people a year, or just over 1 million, which would result in a direct economic impact over $200 million each and every year. So knowing that, we can model out what the capital exhibits are. We know we can't get to that million without giraffes, gorillas, stuff like that. Using Zoo Advisors, they were able to look at the market penetration and the expected increase in attendance from those new habitats, and that's how we came to that number. I don't know if it's going to be exactly 200,000. It might be 150, it might be 300,000, but it's a well-informed guesstimate.
And then, looking at, you mentioned that the plan to hopefully modify the zoo to make it a winter accessible facility as well was down the road. But, and I'm sure there's a reason for this, but I would assume if you're trying to increase attendance, your local attendees who are already spending time in summer months, who would then spend their time in winter months, is a quicker way of increasing attendance. So I'm just wondering why that is farther down the line than quicker down the line, just because as the amateur looking at this, it
Right.
appears like that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And when I entered the zoo business about 9 years ago, I remember asking the same question at the Kansas City Zoo. And so Association of Zoos and Aquariums conduct what's called an earned revenue report, and it has all 238 AZA accredited zoos and aquariums in the U.S. For some reason, zoos are incredibly slow in the winter. I'm from South Florida, and I grew up in the tropics, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Miami. And the January and February is like the only safe time to go outside in Miami because it's so hot and humid. Yet they lose money. It's so slow. So even if we develop an indoor tropical rainforest and all these indoor habitats, we actually project to lose money in those months. To give another example, we're doing an aquarium feasibility study right now. The Monterey Bay Aquarium does 80% of their attendance from May 1st through the end of September. Part of that is zoos are tourism destinations, and school's out in the summer, and that's when they're going to zoos. Another way to look at it is, of our attendance, 1/3 of our attendance comes from Kent County. 2/3 of our attendance comes from outside of Kent County. So we truly are a tourist destination.
Fantastic.
But we still have to serve the community, and if they want a winter zoo, we need to develop a plan, and we have a plan to mitigate our losses, meaning you reallocate labor into your core functions in the winter.
That makes a great deal of sense, and I appreciate the thoroughness. My last question, obviously this doesn't have to do with your amenity directly, but we have 3 county-related recreation or even kind of education recreation related amenities all on the west side. We have the museum, we have the zoo, and then we have Millennium Park. And 2 of those 3 are accessible by our bus transit system. I wonder, has there ever been any conversation about some kind of shuttling service similar to what we have at the Dash for these 3 amenities
Yes.
to expand usership and also expand accessibility to Millennium Park?
That would be fantastic. And, we do have a Laker line stop, but our current bus system does not allow the entire community to reach very specific zip codes. So part of our, in this peak summer, we have, almost 400 people on our payroll. And we've been very intentional by trying to recruit and target from zip codes where unemployment's higher. But the number one complaint we get or feedback we get is, I can't get to the zoo because of the transfer station that's required. We don't have an adequate public transportation system in this community. And it's a barrier for us getting talent, and we need to figure out a way to solve that. We've had conversations over the years about that. From what I understand, the Dash cannot go, and this is not my area of expertise. From what I understand, the Dash would not, can't go to the zoo because it's not within the defined boundaries. We're actually just outside of the boundary. I would love to find a way, working with the other public amenities, even if it's a way to help fund it, to do a dedicated line. It's one way to be good neighbors. There are some exciting things that I've heard the community talk about over the next 10 years that may bring a public transit, but I'm not close enough to those conversations to have probably the most accurate facts.
No, fair. And I would simply encourage you to continue those conversations with these two other partners, since they are so closely linked. Even if it's just a circuit that connects these three amenities to each other, especially if this is if they could be regional, they are regional tourism attractions. I can't think of a better way to complement each other than also making it easier to get from one to another without having to find another parking spot.
Absolutely. It also rolls into our strategic plan. One of our core objectives is a zoo for all, and how are you going to be a zoo for all if people can't get to the zoo?
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. So we love the John Ball Zoo as a family, but I'm going to take my time to nitpick what I think is a recent glitch. So due to my atypical number of children, I end up, when we go to zoos and various other areas of the country, I end up often becoming a member of that zoo because it's the cheapest way to get my crew into the zoo. So for instance, this past Saturday, we were in Indianapolis, went to the zoo there, and got a membership. It took 2 or 3 minutes, and we were in and going about our activities. But about a month or 2 ago, my wife was at the John Ball Zoo, and with recent changes to the membership, it was a very confusing process because the website said one thing, the brochure said another, the staff person thought a different thing. So, but as I understand it, like my family can't get into the John Ball Zoo under the membership structure now, and it seems like a family should be able to go with a family membership. So just a nitpicking point, but I thought I'd share.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And unfortunately, I've received some similar feedback. I know we have a membership for families. I don't know specifically what they told you. I think many organizations have had some challenges with turnover and recruitment, and forgive me, I'm not trying to make an excuse, but in the guest services field, of the 17 leaders in food retail admissions membership, only 2 were here last year in their role. So there's a lot of training. It's not an excuse. We have to fix it, and I appreciate the feedback. And if you have more information that you want to provide me, so I can root cause it, and I'll get it fixed.
Yeah, happy to do that later. And just for the record, we did renew our membership anyway.
Okay, thank you. But we can't create barriers to people that want to support the zoo. Otherwise, I can only imagine there must be other people that went through something similar and instead walked away. So thank you for sharing that.
And in all fairness, Commissioner Coleman does redefine the name family. So. Commissioner McLeod.
Chair. So thanks for that wonderful presentation. And I was really interested in the plans that you have, that you described in terms of expanding access and really targeting the increase in access for those that, may not have the financial means, I guess, to attend the zoo. So you had mentioned that 75,000 of the visitors from, I believe, last year
Right.
were within the, economic, socioeconomic status that they were able to attend for free. I wondered what your goal is for this increase, like if you were to receive the ARPA funding for, the expansion. Do you have a different target goal to increase that number, increase access? As a mother of four, when my kids were younger, the zoo was the place to go. It was a cheap place to have a fun time, to allow the kids to engage in educational opportunities as well as have some fun. And so I know that that's something that people really like to engage in. And I just wondered what your plan was to increase that number in the future with all of these great other opportunities that are being planned.
Great question, thank you. And part of A Zoo for All is we all share this planet together. And zoos tell the story of the intersection of society and wildlife, meaning we're not just about wildlife, otherwise we'd be a wildlife sanctuary. And since we all share this planet together, everybody should be able to experience the amazement of wildlife. So years ago, our JUMP program required funding. So we'd go out and fundraise for it, and then that would set a target of how many JUMP passes we would distribute. We made the decision a few years ago that that did not really align with our new values as an organization. And we made a leap of faith. And we said that, regardless of the funding we receive, we're going to make the zoo free for those with a bridge card. And that's anyone in the state of Michigan. So one side of the coin may say, well, you haven't fundraised for those 75,000 guests. But I would say that if you have a bridge card, it's not like you were going to the zoo anyhow and paying the admission for the zoo. So what we're truly doing is expanding access. And I like sharing this experience. Shortly after passing the changes in the bridge program, which allows a bridge card holder and their family to get in for free, I was walking the zoo and I ran into a family. It was a couple, mom and dad, and 7 kids. And they had brought their own lunch, and I was wearing my zoo uniform. They didn't know who I was, and they were asking for directions in the zoo. And I was sharing some of the animals and the new stuff that arrived at the zoo, and I asked where they're from, and they said Jackson, Michigan. And they asked what I did for the zoo, and I explained I was CEO. And the mom actually started crying, and she said it was the first time her family's been to the zoo. First time. 7 kids from 18 months to 20 years old. And both of them worked full-time jobs, making minimum wage, which put them well below the living wage for a family that size. And they came to the zoo for free. And it was that experience that said, the zoo's huge. The amount of we have more space than the Lincoln Park Zoo that does 2 million people a year. It's not a space constraint issue. It's more about making sure that the whole community can experience the wonders of wildlife. So the answer to your question is we'd like everyone in the state of Michigan to come to the zoo on the Bridge Card program. There is no limit on how many we'll accept.
That's great to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I've had the pleasure of watching the zoo grow, expand, advance over the last 20 years from my time here. And I was a transplant from the Detroit area, raised my son practically at the zoo. Was curious if you'd like to comment on your summer programs. And one of the things that was very influential for him, in addition to the summer programs, which are second to none, was we were able to get a behind-the-scenes tour of the aquarium. So I'm curious, between your summer programs and behind-the-scenes options, what's that update?
Great question, and this is not going to sound very positive.
The
But
answer is the answer.
we sell those out right away when they go online. And we've had internal conversations around, should we raise prices, but how's that affect access? We've created some scholarship programs, so all members of the community. The unfortunate reality is we don't have enough space to conduct educational programming. Matter of fact, our last structure, which was a mobile, not a mobile home, mobile, I don't know how you say that. A temporary structure that we got from the Parks Department years ago, it is no longer appropriate to have humans in it. There is a raccoon family living underneath it. So we've lost our last educational space due to the deteriorating maintenance of the site, leaving only the administration building, where we use the GRPS classrooms in the summer when school's not in session. There is so much demand out there, and part of our master plan, part of the ARPA asked, is a 40,000 square foot education facility, which will allow us to greatly expand the education programming. We do stuff in the zoo, but you may recall there was a home base that they started from, and it's a blended learning experiential of hands-on learning out in the zoo, but also a STEAM-based academic setting to provide, the science curriculum, the math curriculum, et cetera. So we do have plans to fix it. Unfortunately, right now, there is so much demand out there that we can't even meet 1% of that demand.
And then the follow-up was the behind-the-scenes tours and how you manage that, if you are managing those still.
We do. We still have behind-the-scenes tours. They are very popular. I don't have them all memorized, but there's an aquarium, there's a feeding, there's Red Panda experience. Gosh, we have a dozen of them or so, and we still have those. And those are available for all ages. And there is an educational path on the behind-the-scenes tours, but there's also it's a pure experience, the ability to interact with a Red Panda. And everything we do has a conservation message, so you're going to hear an educational component, but it's not structured like a classroom experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Hennessy.
There's a lot of good things going on at the zoo. I learned a few things, though, listening to you this morning, and I do hope that, we have some time before the next master plan is done, and I do hope, one of your favorite words is intentionality, and I do hope that we engage with the local West Side community more intentionally before even the board approves a new master plan. I think that there needs to be just more engagement, more buy-in, because you do sit within a West Side community, and it's been several years since any planning with the community was held, and that was for the playground, and that's been open. Time escapes me, but 2-3 years, probably pre-COVID. So I think that there is, intentionality is a favorite word of yours, and I think it's a great word.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, and agreed. When we did that neighborhood engagement, we made a commitment to provide an update every 2 years. We are past that. We're in year 3. The playground opened, if I remember correctly, right before COVID, like immediately before COVID. I know next year, the team is planning neighborhood celebrations once per month, May through September. And our intent is to provide an update to the community. I was hoping to learn more about the ARPA process to provide a meaningful update, but I know we've had some off-side conversations about maybe some type of winter potluck that we could host in the admin building. And maybe we could start up those community meetings together again. We do have exciting plans for the admin building. The 2015 master plan has that administration building being removed and turned into a parking lot. But through the community engagement that we had, we thought we'd restore that admin building once the CEC is built to its historical contents, meaning the sides would be excavated, the large Half-circle glass windows would be turned into carriage doors, become a community center and rental space on the top floor. The basement, once the CEC is built and there's a new classrooms for GRPS, 2/3 of it would be a cultural history museum of the West Side and John Ball, staffed by community members, and the other third would be a catering kitchen to support community events.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted our questions. Thank you, Peter, for being here this morning and for the presentation. And of course, thank you to you and to your team for continuing to maintain the John Ball Zoo as a first-class asset in this community. So
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Stack. Thank you, everyone.
All right, our second special order of business, presentations from, I think, 3 organizations. We have Family Futures, Twain Howard and Candace Coling, and then Health Net of West Michigan. I see Maureen Kirkwood is here, West Michigan Partnership for Children, Sonia Norman. So I'm not sure the sequence. You guys have probably worked out how you're going to do that. So good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm reminded of W.C. Fields, never work with children or animals. So I'm following red pandas, which is a difficult act to follow, and feeding giraffes. But congratulations on the work that you're doing. And actually, we're here to talk about children. I'm Twain Howard, Chief Operating Officer of The Right Place. But here I'm here today as Treasurer of Family Futures. And we do have a couple following. I'm just the intro. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, Chair Stack, Commissioners, Al. Thank you for the work and allowing us to be here and set this up. We all know that the 3rd grade reading level is a strong predictor of the future outcomes in life for children. That's now science, it's proven. We all work based on that. Student who is behind their reading level in 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate by age 19. Statistically speaking, they will likely never catch up if they're behind in 3rd grade. Some states use the 3rd grade reading proficiency to help project their prison populations for when those children will become adults. That's how crucial this is to the rest of their lives. It's a critical point because up until 3rd grade, students are learning to read. After that, they're reading to learn. And again, if they are behind at that point, they won't catch up. Knowing the importance of this metric, unfortunately, does not provide insights into how we can move the needle on this important indicator. What you're going to hear today is the impact of adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, especially during the first 5 years of life. The instrumentality of that and how important it is in getting at the source for many people of not being at that reading level at 3rd grade. We're going to hear about the impact of adverse childhood experiences, again, ACEs. It's an acronym you're going to want to know, you're going to hear it a lot. The work of the 3 organizations striving to address the needs of these children by being trauma-informed and how you can make a difference as well. With that, I'd like to turn over to Candace Cowling of Family Futures. Thank you again for your time today.
Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. We actually do have a PowerPoint presentation that we sent in. So I think she's grabbing it right now. So we're going to get that set up. And you also have a handout regarding ACE study in Michigan. So some of you may have heard the term ACE, that stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And what we're going to do today is talk a lot about ACE, which is kind of a subheading, if you will, under trauma. We want to talk about also the importance of being trauma-informed, and we're going to talk about the impact on children in our community. And we're also going to give you potentially a little bit of homework, we hope, of what you can do as well. As Twain mentioned, my name is Candace Cowling. I'm the Executive Director of Family Futures. So when we talk about ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences, how do we define those? The broad definition is all types of abuse, neglect, and other potentially traumatic experiences that occur to people under age 18. In the state of Michigan, we do an annual survey, behavioral health survey, and within that, they look at the areas of physical, emotional, sexual abuse. Within the household, they look at mental illness, substance use, domestic violence, incarcerated family member, and parental separation and divorce. And they look at these and see how many of these different types of experiences that adults have had as children. So in Michigan, with these 8 specific ACEs that are tracked, we're going to take a closer look at that. And again, your handout you have gives a more robust analysis of their findings. But here's some of the takeaways from this study, and this is just one of many, many studies related to adverse childhood experiences. But we know that ACEs are common. We know that they're strongly linked with a wide range of risk behaviors and poor outcomes. We know that they're expensive to society, they're expensive to our community. And we also know that ACEs do not have to be destiny, though. So here's some of the information from that survey. 2/3 of Michigan adults, 66%, reported having 1 or more ACEs. Now think about that in this room, that 2/3 have had 1 or more ACEs in their childhood. And why does this matter? Having ACEs, and actually the more ACEs that you have, the greater you're at risk for a lot of bad things happening. 141% are greater at risk of depression for adults with 1 or more ACEs compared to those with no ACEs. And then if you look at 4 or more ACEs, 44% are at greater risk of depression. Here's a wide array of different types of areas that we have impact with ACEs. So you see that 82% greater risk of poor mental health, 83% greater risk of diagnosed with COPD, 64% greater risk of fair or poor general health, and it also increases your risk for asthma, both in the moment of when the survey was taken, but also over the lifetime as well. There's a 46% greater risk of binge drinking, and the list goes on and on and on. And this, we refer to this as the oil slick. If you look at these different types of outcomes and the risk related from having ACE, because we know that ACEs are common, there's a strong cumulative impact on the risk of common health and social problems. So that's why preventing ACEs and their intergenerational transmission is the greatest opportunity for improving the well-being in our community. And so this slide shows you the percentage of various health and social problems and epidemiologists have found that are caused by ACEs. So if you think of the metaphor of an oil spill, the percentage of the problem that's coded by the oil represents the percentage of each problem that's potentially preventable if we prevent ACEs. We use the term, a good solution prevents multiple problems. Preventing ACEs and moderating the effects of ACEs is just such a solution that can prevent multiple social and health problems. And it's because of organizations like ours, and Maureen is going to talk about HealthNet of West Michigan as well, we're aligning our efforts to be able to address the issues of ACEs, to prevent them, as well as to deal with them once they've happened, to really prevent the long-term negative impact that we see from them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maureen, and I'll be back in a few.
Good morning.
Hey, nice to see you all. So I am the CEO of HealthNet of West Michigan. My name is Maureen Kirkwood. And just briefly, HealthNet is what we call a bridge organization. So our job is to help kind of be that bridge between the formal healthcare system and the network of community agencies and services for housing, food, transportation, et cetera. So we get a lot of referrals from healthcare delivery sites like emergency departments, labor and delivery, primary care, et cetera. We have about 50 staff. We serve about 5,000 to 6,000 community members in Kent County per year. And that's everyone from birth to through senior citizens. We serve the lifespan. So Candace asked me to join her today to talk about why HealthNet decided to embark upon the process of becoming a trauma-informed organization. So as you can see from her presentation, many people in this room have endured traumatic events in their lives, and especially as children. I think it's important to understand, as many of you probably have personal experiences, how we handle that trauma shapes the way we see the world. It shapes our executive functioning. It shapes how we problem solve, how we interact with other people, and how we engage. So what we know is that trauma impacts our clients and trauma impacts our staff. So we realized that actually, as we did more research on this topic, we realized that our staff, many of our staff, have experienced those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences. And then as they're sitting and working with clients who have experienced trauma, they're hearing traumatic stories over and over and over again, and that causes what we call secondary trauma. So it kind of restarts all of that in somebody's mind when they're listening and when they're doing their job, basically. What happens is that secondary trauma can lead to burnout, significant burnout, and that, of course, causes employee turnover. So we wanted to become trauma-informed because we felt it was the right thing to do. We also know that it's a good business decision because employee turnover is expensive, and we want to maintain and have a healthy workforce. So we decided to become a trauma-informed organization. We received a capacity building grant from the Health Endowment Fund, Michigan Health Endowment Fund. We contracted with some experts at the School of Social Work at the University of Buffalo to provide some consulting services for us. We formed an internal trauma-informed organization team, and we've completed the first phase, which is this whole assessment, top to bottom, of the organization for how trauma-informed we are. What are we doing well? Where can we improve? So that's everything from the physical environment to our policies to the way we work with clients, everything that you could possibly think of. So for an example, we're in the process of moving to a new office. We're downsizing a bit. And when you look at our environment, our office environment from a trauma-informed lens, that really affects how the office looks, how it sounds, how it smells, all of those things. And that really informed how our new office is going to look as we move into it. So that's just one small example of the work that we're doing in terms of implementing. So thanks for allowing me to share. Candace?
And we are also in that process, and actually we were able to learn a lot from our community partners about which model we wanted to look towards to adopt to become a more trauma-informed organization as well. Another organization that's on that journey is the West Michigan Partnership for Children. And Sonia Norman, she was going to be here today, had planned to be here to present and talk about trauma as it relates to children who are in foster care. But she had an urgent matter arise, and she needed to attend to this morning, so she's not able to be here. But she was going to share with you the impact of trauma on children in foster care, as I said. And I really encourage you to learn more about the work of WMPC and its partner organizations. It's a unique model that is being looked at very closely across the state to be adopted. But they're transforming the foster care system to prevent further trauma and to reduce the negative impact of exposure to trauma. So in lieu of her presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about ACEs and trauma and what it means for our community. And I'd like you to think a little bit about what it feels like to be an individual child in the moment experiencing trauma. And I do this recognizing that many of you will have had trauma in your own past experiences, and so I encourage you to take care of yourself in the ways that you need to. But I'd like to do a quick thought exercise with you. So you've probably heard of the terms fight, flight, or freeze response. So I'd like you to think about a time that you were suddenly frightened. Maybe it was a traumatic experience. It could have been a sudden shock. Even a car accident or something that you learned about that puts you in a feeling of being in danger almost, but you may not even be able to put your finger on that was what was happening. So if you think about that, did time seem to slow down for you in that moment? Did your breathing get shallow, or did you find it even difficult to breathe, perhaps? Did you feel an urge to run away? Perhaps you froze in your steps, unable to move. Did you feel the urge to strike out and fight your way to safety? Did your thinking get really focused on the danger? And could you perhaps not think as clearly about how to solve the situation then? If you've ever experienced this in your life, you've experienced what children experience when they have adverse experiences happening to them, when they have trauma occurring in their life. These are biological responses to danger, and they protect us in the moment. But, excuse me, when a child doesn't feel safe because of adverse experiences, they can grow to expect that danger. They're anticipating. It's a way for them to protect themselves. And those very responses that can protect you in times of danger, they become a way to respond to situations, whether the danger exists or not. So for some of you, maybe you haven't experienced these feelings yourself, but maybe you've experienced having an interaction with a person who's responded in a way that really confuses you. Perhaps you find yourself asking, why are they so angry? It just might be that ACEs are the underlying issue. There's a lot more that we could talk about, ACEs and trauma. I encourage you all to take a deep breath now, that we kind of put you through that thought exercise. But I'd love for us to talk about, have continued conversations about how to prevent them, how to reduce the negative impacts of these. And it's much more than we have time to discuss today, so I do want to leave you with a few opportunities to act on what you've learned today. I encourage you to become more trauma-informed. Lots of ways to do that. There are videos that you can watch. We will send you some follow-up information about how you can access some of this information. I'd really encourage you to participate in an ACE training, and we're happy to provide that to you free of charge. We're doing that throughout the community, providing ACE trainings, providing trauma trainings. And one of the words that we haven't talked about today that is so important that you can't really talk about trauma unless you use this word, and that's resilience. And so it is not a destiny your destiny when you have ACEs. So encourage you to learn more. I'd also ask you to look at your policies addressing trauma. As you look at everything, as Maureen said, they're looking at their space in terms of how can it be trauma-informed. Having conversations about the zoo, it's a great resource there for the community, and we know the importance of connecting with nature in developing resilience. So there are a lot of ways that you can really apply the topics, the issues, and the dynamics related to trauma and resilience. So as I've said, adverse childhood experiences are common, but they are not destiny. I know this firsthand, as I suspect many of you do. So I invite you all to join in this effort. I want to thank you for your time today, and the work that you do for the community is so critical. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have now, and certainly we'd like to continue the conversation and the shared learning.
Thank you, Candace, and the rest of you for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments? I see Commissioner Sparks.
Candace, this just really touches my heart this morning. Thank you and Maureen for coming in here. I have an ACE score of 8. 8. And you can only go up to 10, everybody. So having, been in foster care, having been separated from my twin sister, I mean, there's just so many things. And it could just bring a tear to my eye, but I love what you said, that it doesn't define your destiny. I don't feel like I should be sitting here some days because of the trauma that I had as a child. But I just praise God. I'm so thankful for organizations like yours. Excuse me, everybody. Sorry about that. The ACE training is real. The adverse childhood training is, it's so important and imperative that people understand where people can go in their minds, where people could end up in life. And I just thank you for coming today, and I thank you for being part of the trauma-informed training now, and I hope that the county looks at having you come in. Blessings to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sparks, and thank you for sharing.
Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was kind of hoping people would be ahead of me. Definitely way too much to think about on a Thursday.
A lot to think and feel, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to pass for the moment. Thanks.
Commissioner Coleman.
Chair. I appreciate the presentation this morning, and I think this certainly, trauma informed, is so important that it's not someone's destiny. That we can work with people, help people, and we can all step into people's lives in different ways. But having that kind of knowledge and education, I've found to be very valuable in my own life. And I would just add, so my son Benjamin, has been here before to meetings. He sits out there, and you can't see it. And that's something that everybody should be aware of. You can't see it. Like looking at, somebody, he's a happy little kid, but his first 2 years of life, he had more trauma in his background than I've had in 4 decades. And so I would just encourage all of us to continue to increase our knowledge, but then use that knowledge to step into helping our community.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I would add to that, the earlier that trauma occurs too, so when it happens is really important as how often it happens too. And we know that the little brain is just, more fragile, so yeah, and they don't necessarily have the words to deal with it. And even if a child doesn't remember, the body still remembers. They remember those reactions and how to respond to danger. So appreciate everything that you're doing.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Want to again echo the sentiments of my colleagues and also applaud the bravery of one for sharing her personal story. I would like to talk a little bit about prevention, especially looking at this last bullet of county policies addressing trauma. We have been able to, you've presented some very telling information about the effects of ACEs. Could you talk a little bit about the causes of ACEs? And, obviously it's usually some parent or adult in their life. Have we, what degree of study has been done to measure, is this inherited trauma from them that they're passing on in their own reactions versus financial stress? What are some of the telling predictors of an ACE event occurring? And what do we see as some of the strongest prevention methods to mitigating them?
Lots of questions wrapped up in those comments, so appreciate those. And how to tease it apart, because what you've just talked about, is that the sort of thing that we talk about in sort of a training opportunity, because it is really complex. One of the things that we do know, though, is that there are protective factors, that if you put these in place and work with families and with community, because resilience, yes, it's about the individual and how to deal with the experience they've had, but when you're talking about prevention, a lot of times you're talking about community policies and supports being put in place so that you prevent the stress that triggers that. So when I talked about how one experiences if they've had trauma in their life and they learn to react, that oftentimes is what leads to then the societal problems that we have. You see somebody, reacting without being able to have delayed gratification, for instance. And if you haven't developed that and you're in that state, it's very difficult to stop, think about what you're doing. And so you have a lot of the actions that happen. So prevention really is getting in ahead of this and trying to give some of the skills. And it's along a whole continuum. But one of the most important things that you can do for a child in terms of adverse childhood experiences, both to prevent them as well as to reduce the impact of those, is to have at least one nurturing, caring, competent adult in that child's life. Oftentimes that can be within the family network. It can also be from other areas. And the more that you have of that in a child's life, the better protected they are. For adults, it's also making sure that we're supporting the adults. So having support in times of need is another protective factor. Think about if your car breaks down. Do you have somebody that you can call? Do you have the resources to be able to address that? If you don't, that ups the stress. And again, from somebody who maybe has had experiences, that puts them into a fight, flight, or freeze mode. They can't think about solutions of how to deal with it. So having supports up front and having those protective factors in place is one of the most important things. There are biological issues that you also have to deal with, because we know from an epigenetic standpoint that trauma can change and trigger, switch some of the genetic pieces, which probably has a lot to do with how many negative health outcomes there are. So there's a whole range of things that happens, but I would say the first thing is, making sure that we have supports for parents, and that we also are reducing the stress when we can, and then giving the tools, training on how to deal with when you have those reactions. Because you have to be able to identify it in yourself, like, why am I feeling this way right now?
Thank you. And, just to kind of crystallize this and take it a step back, I don't know if it's been done, but I imagine, as you've explained this to me and as we're hearing this, if there was a bar chart of showing, much like this, adults who have experienced ACEs and are currently smoking, the higher the ACEs, the higher likelihood of smoking. I imagine the lower the household income as a child, there is likely some correlative factor with the number of ACEs some might experience because of the stresses of life impacting a potential ACE event. Is that fair to say?
I want to be careful in answering that because, again, that it's not destiny, and that there are a lot of things that come with living in poverty, but there are individuals who live in poverty that ACEs don't occur.
Right.
And there are individuals who live in poverty that the greater stress does create a situation in which ACEs do occur. But yes, you would find a higher correlation.
Yeah, and I appreciate the qualifier. We don't at all want to use this venue to create or perpetuate any kind of stereotype. It's more, as I'm looking at our role on county policies, time and again, when we've had agencies like yours come and give special orders of business, we often see the great work you're doing and the underlying issue of economic security and greater economic security in our community with these underserved folks is just a key determinant to making your work more doable. So I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Get your insights on that.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not looking for an answer right now because I want to be respectful of time, but I'm wondering how many of our, community-facing, parts of the county, sheriff, corrections, health department, courts, have, when we do trainings, have we done this kind of training? Is this something we could put on the list of kind of trainings we would like our employees to have? Like I said, I don't need an answer now, but it would be good to know that we're heading this direction.
Okay. Sure.
I would make one quick comment.
Yes.
That we've worked quite a bit with the health department, and I applaud their efforts, and Adam might be here, and I don't want to speak on his behalf, but in the conversations we had with them, we started talking about how can we become more trauma-informed across the community, and to their credit, one of the things they said they needed to do first is look internally and make sure that they're taking care of themselves and understand the dynamics of trauma within their staff, and so they are in that process as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Commissioner Bulkowski.
Let me try this a second time. Because that brings up, I point at the sheriff because we learned at the front of the court advisory committee the work that they do with their staff as they approach very traumatic experiences. And so there's some good stuff happening there. And of course, we've heard a lot about like their witness or their victim support programs. Again, those are very traumatic experiences for adult and children that unfortunately they have to address. So good stuff there. Still lots of questions because, but for me, I don't want to be inspired by your presentation, and I don't want to be inspired by Commissioner Sparks' testimony. I want us to instigate some action. So, and ask the county ask how county policies are addressing trauma. Man, are you a politician? Because that's a pretty, my wife calls it priest talk. It's pretty meaning, like what does that mean? I mean, what do you have a list of things we should be doing? Or, we have the early childhood millage, isn't that enough?
No. But it's great.
Yeah, good answer.
Good
Anyways,
start.
but all of those pieces, like, what's some real action steps? I know we need to do this before those action steps, but do you have a list that you might send us? Are people working on that list?
We can help you out with that.
All right.
And then, our hopes is that this is the beginning of a conversation that leads to action. Action within individuals, actions at the organizational level as well.
All right, thanks.
All right. Again, thank you, Candace. I do have one follow-up, and I'm going to keep it brief because of the time, but your conversation and discussion is shades of the discussion we had back in the early childhood millage discussions when we deliberated about that. And it's certainly clear to me, and I think most of us, that there's a very personal aspect or dynamic to ACES. There's a very relational aspect to it. But there is a public policy aspect to it. And of course, we are public policy makers. And so that is probably where we'll spend more of our intellectual time. But one of the consequences of ACES you talked about and touched on is the cost to society and the cost to taxpayers, to the extent that these experiences generate costs in education, costs in law enforcement, costs in the juvenile justice system, costs in the health system, and it goes on and on and on. Can you don't have to do it today, but maybe help us identify some of the measures and metrics on how those costs are identified through our society or through our community to help us to get a handle on that?
We'd be happy to do that, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chair Steck. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. With that, we will move to the next item, which is public comment. Again, this is the first public comment and is a public comment intended to only allow for addressing those items that are on our agenda. If you wish to address items that are on the agenda, you may do so now. Identify yourself, and you have up to 3 minutes. And I will note that there's a second public comment later on for general-related matters. I do not see anyone, so we'll move to the next item, which is the consent agenda, and I will call on Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move the adoption of the consent agenda for today's date.
Supported by Commissioner Morgan. Discussion? This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Womack, Teal, Sparks, Skaggs, Ponstein, Morgan,
Yes.
McLeod, LeGrand, Coleman, Jones,
Yes.
Hennessy, Green,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Bolter, Antor, Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 8A, and for a resolution, I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to move the adoption of Resolution 96 of today's date. This is to adopt the 2022-2023 October fiscal year budget appropriations appropriations resolution. It comes to us from the Administrator's Office.
Support.
It is supported by Commissioner Jones. Any questions or comments? I do not see any. This is a roll call vote, so Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 96, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Womack, Teal, Sparks, Skaggs, Ponstein, Morgan, McLeod, LeGrand, Coleman, Jones,
Yes.
Hennessy, Green,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Bulkowski,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy,
Yes.
Commissioners Bolter, Antor, Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 96 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8B, and I will call on Commissioner Jones for a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 982297, the grant project agreement and purchase of land for Townsend Park from the Parks Department.
Support.
It is supported by Commissioner Morgan. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, as I mentioned in committee, that this is a phenomenal opportunity and like to commend Cannon Township for financially supporting a significant amount of money toward this. I think this is one great example of where the county and our local unit of governments working very well together to enhance our parks. And there is a phenomenal future vision for this down the road. I'm excited to see this come to fruition as we advance with our park services to the community, and just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of Cannon's participation in this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Not to delay further, but I just wanted to echo those sentiments. We've seen NRTF projects come before us that don't have nearly this percentage of a local match from a participating jurisdiction, and it's I certainly appreciate seeing that, and speaks to the values that Commissioner Jones highlighted. So, thank you.
All right. If no one else, this is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 96, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
97.
Still yes.
We already did 96. Let's try 97. Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Womack, Teal. Yes. Sparks. Skaggs.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
McLeod. LeGrand. Coleman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Vice Chair Breby.
Yes.
Commissioners Bolter.
Yes.
Antor. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 97 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8C, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski for a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 98 of today's date, which deals with liquor tax revenue coming back to the county.
Supported by Commissioner Morgan, I believe. Thank you. Questions or comments? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. So, Al, just to be clear for everyone on this, so we're sending them 50%. I can make the assumption that our general fund then gets 50%?
Correct.
Can you, and it doesn't have to be today, but give maybe the commission a breakdown on how we spend our 50%? Might give us some perspective on what we do with this money. On the other note, sitting on the LRE Substance Abuse Board, wow, $598,000 that's going to be pumped into this. And we look at that and say, gosh, look at all the good things that we could do with that. But where did that money come from? I mean, people have turned more and more to alcohol and drugs to cope. And it just seems amazing that we live in a society that we fund abuses by people who are abusing. And I think that maybe the priority needs to be changed, not at all levels of government, but especially at the state, how programs to fight addiction and help people with addiction, how we're going to tackle that as a society. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner, nope, I guess that's it. Commissioner Coleman.
Just a quick follow-up to Commissioner Ponstein's point there. I saw, 30% above our estimate on like liquor tax income. Like, should we be concerned? Is this just a misestimate, or, is Kent County like turning to the bottle here?
Let me say, I've seen fluctuations like this many times over the years. So, it does reflect greater revenue increase by the state, which then gets passed on to us. But I have seen that fluctuate both ways over the years.
And I think to clarify, this tax only is generated from the sale of hard liquor. It is not from wine or beer. So And to follow up on Commissioner Ponstein, the objective here is not to increase this revenue stream, but to eliminate it, or at least reduce it substantially. The other, there was a question, I think, in finance as to whether or not the money that is distributed to the LRE comes back. It is required to be spent only in Kent County, so what we send in must come back here. Likewise, the other counties that send in their money to the regional entity must also be spent in their county. So. Any other questions or comments? If not, this is also a roll call, so Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 98, Commissioners Wooden,
Yes.
Womack, Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
McLeod. LeGrand. Coleman.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Hennessy. Green.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Bolter.
Yes.
Antor. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 98 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to our second opportunity for public comment. If there is anyone that wishes to address the commission on matters that are within our general jurisdiction, you may do so at this point. Please identify yourself, even though we know you, by name and where you live, and you have up to 3 minutes. Good morning.
How you doing, everyone? My name is DeAndre Jones. I'm still on the northwest side of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I feel good right now. I got my suit jacket on, you know what I'm saying? I'm feeling pretty sassy right now. But I wanted to talk to you guys about the ARPA funds. I hope that you guys distribute it to the community equitably. I hope that you give people of color the opportunity if they sent in ARPA proposals, not just mine, but I hope you consider the community's proposals. I believe that we need investment definitely in our community. I want to see transformational projects. I want to see more than just my project. I'm not here to talk about my project as much as I would love to. I like to see you guys actually distribute these funds to the community. I know that you guys have an opportunity to make sure that government operates with these funds too, and I hope you guys utilize it to make our county government better and make sure it works equitably and equally for everyone. I just hope that you guys really take that opportunity, because this is the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It may not be a large amount of money to some of you guys, because you guys probably know what real money is. But I hope that you guys actually take that opportunity to give some of that to the 3rd Ward and other wards too. But they definitely need an investment over there. Recently, I was volunteering at Link Up. We were feeding 300 families. I'm really, really big. I'm a big compassionate person, but I love community and I love volunteering, and I really have a passion for my community. And as I'm feeding these families and all of this stuff like that, one of the Kia boys drove past Link Up and they smacked into a young woman's car. She had a baby in the car and a friend in the car. And so when we talk about systematic problems, I hope that you guys invest in transformational projects that can really get to the core root of problems, so we don't have upbringing, kids in the upbringing groups like the Kia boys that are, making sure that, I don't know if the woman has, coverage to be able to get a rental car, be able to get another car, but I know that that woman didn't have a car and she looked very frustrated. So when you guys distribute these funds, when you guys are out here, doing your legislative work, I hope that you guys keep the community in mind, because we need you guys. You guys are our representatives. You guys are our Kent County commissioners, and a lot of people admire you guys, and a lot of people look up to you guys. And I look up to some of you guys, and I don't really look up to people. I'm confident. I love myself, but some of you guys are inspiring. So I hope that you guys keep fighting the good fight. And that you guys, when you guys distribute these funds, that you distribute these funds equitably, that you consider the community's needs, that you consider projects that are truly transformational and get to the core root of problems, and not just for the betterment of some of these richer nonprofits, but let others be able to create revenue for themselves and other families, and be able to show new ideas, because times are changing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, if not, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is our administrator's report.
All right, and I'll keep it brief today. So just wanted to remind you that on Monday at 10 a.m., we have a long-awaited open house for the opening of the new Parks headquarters.
And the event, open house starts at 10 a.m. There will be remarks and ribbon cutting at 10:30. This is an interesting one for me because I kind of led the initiative to move parks from the road commission to the county. And initially, we started talking about, the facility they're in was temporary 20 years ago. And so it is gratifying to finally see a phenomenal facility they're moving into. So I think this is a big deal, and I hope you all come out and celebrate this moment. Staff has been working intensely on ARPA process. I have been extremely proud and happy of how the administrator's office team came together to put the materials together for your consideration and also for the community to view next week. And so I know it's going to be an arduous process, but we have major funds to distribute in a transformational way, and I know we're up to the task. Labor negotiations started. We have 3 unions up this year and the rest next year. Obviously, the fiscal team and administrators team is still working hard on the budget. And then also, Katie Van Havel and I facilitated strategic planning for the KFC CCC last week. So, and then also one other thing, we are one of many organizations that are hosting a trail summit in this room on September 28th. We've been part of ongoing discussions with some of our foundations and other funders who are trying to get a grasp on the trail network as they get a heightened interest in funding for trails all over the place. Very shortly, we should have a map of the Greenway from the border with Ottawa County to Lowell, and then all the projects that feed in through Grand Rapids, through the other communities, to Cascade, Plainfield, Ada. And so I think that'll be exciting to kind of have I almost said roadmap. Well, I did say it. So we can actually look at those pieces of that future, and different organizations can decide how to partner up and how to fund some of those trails and amenities to make those a reality. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Al. We'll move to the next item, reports. Does any commissioner have an additional report to make? Well, the system must be working. Oh, Commissioner Sparks.
Is this the time? I'm not sure. Is this the time to talk about miscellaneous?
No.
Okay, so, sorry about that. Get my mind back right here. We do have the Area Agency on Aging of West Michigan. We have a meeting next week. We all know that Jackie O'Connor has served us very well for 28 years, Carol? More than 30 years. And we are going to be celebrating her, and we ask that everyone else come out and celebrate her with us. Carol and I will be doing a proclamation for Jackie on behalf of the county as well. So thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other additional reports? If not, we'll move to the next item, miscellaneous. If any commissioner has a miscellaneous item. I'll go to Commissioner Sparks because you actually did a preemptive, so go ahead.
So, thank you, Chair. This weekend on Saturday, we are cleaning up Kentwood. Commissioner Michelle McLeod, myself, and a few other commissioners in Kentwood that represent Kentwood will be cleaning up our Veterans Memorial Park, so everyone is welcome to join us. That is part of the mayor's Grand River cleanup. Also, the Mexican Heritage Festival, they're celebrating 53 years. They will be down in Calder Plaza this week. So Carol Hennessy and I will be presenting a proclamation for them for 53 years of bringing our Mexican community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. So Al, I want to thank you and the staff. I looked at that 780-page document of all the proposals, and I don't think anyone can say that we didn't go the extra mile to get as many people putting in proposals. I saw the list of ones that didn't qualify, and some of those are still needs in the community. Do you have any thoughts on ones that are being eliminated that I think make a good case that we need to do stuff? what opportunities are going to be ahead for those folks?
You have a couple ways, I think, to address that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So one is, one of the Guidehouse tasks is to identify other state and federal funding if available for some of these projects. Also, I look at what's been submitted as a tremendous force for future action in the community, that it doesn't just end. There's a lot of projects that, obviously, most projects won't get funded, that's just reality. But I think that for the ones that don't, I mean, there's a lot of partners that could come together and make some of those a reality. So I don't view that as an end, but part of another beginning.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple things. One, Peter's not here anymore, but I think a raccoon-infested temporary building could be an attraction that would attract a lot of kids to the zoo. And second, I'll just step onto my soapbox here for a second. But as we look at the ACE information, struggle with societal problems, I do not think we should jump as our first solution is going to be found in government spending, because if it was going to be found in government spending, we would have fixed all this stuff by now. In fact, it's found by us taking personal action. That might be taking a trauma-informed set of classes to understand better. It might be becoming a foster parent. It might be taking a homeless person to lunch and see how to engage with somebody one-on-one. None of us can help everybody, but we can each certainly kind of step out of our bubbles of good lives and help somebody. And I think that's really where solutions to these problems are found.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Bukowski.
Yeah, I'll leave that unresponded to for the moment. I did want to mention that this weekend is also the Grand Valley American Indian Lodge traditional powwow at Riverside Park. I was reminded of that because when Al mentioned the Greenway, when I had conversations with Ron Yob, who's chief of the Grand River Band of Odawa Indians, he talked about, all of these spots on this Greenway are traditional meeting spaces and villages of the indigenous people of our area. And I think from an educational perspective, he spoke about a project, and as Dale Robertson told us, they have a great relationship with the museum, how to mark these places appropriately and for us to learn. Again, there were people here before, and they too would be great opportunities for learning for our children to know that all these spots, just west of here at the Rapids and, where the Rogue hits the Grand, up and down. So just a great opportunity again to honor and mark, and then, some action with the tribal members in our community. So that's what I got.
All right, anyone else? Commissioner Wooden.
Well, I guess if my colleague will leave the response unanswered, I feel the need to at least answer it briefly. Chair Steck noted the drain on ACEs on our tax dollars currently, and whether that's in social services, whether that's in our criminal justice system. I would say we have government spending right now to tackle ACEs, and in response, an ounce of prevention could help save us in pounds of response. And that's why I certainly think the discussion on county policies and county priorities and investment may serve both as a role of reducing the strain on government services in the long run, while realizing that there are structural and societal issues that contribute to environments that lead to ACEs. And, I think this county has done a tremendous job in the past tackling root issues. And I think it is up to us to spend this time to truly use the role we have to do our best to mitigate those root issues. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping that brief. It is a complicated and challenging conversation that will have to happen. Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of wanted to add to that, and you guys might want to think about doing this in your legislative priorities next year, but I think related to that is going to be a need for increase in mental health services. And unfortunately, the state's actuary for Medicaid has chosen to cut it 5%. So when you start looking at what we need to do to be advocating, I think we all need to start rowing in the same direction in terms of, great, we're getting more liquor tax in, maybe we're applying that to some substance use disorder issues, but Medicaid, mental health as a whole is getting cut because there was a drop in usage from previous years, probably due to COVID. And so I hope that you all kind of keep your eye on the ball and continue to advocate for that. Thanks.
I assume you're being a little facetious there with some of those comments, as the 5% reduction, well, yeah, that's a very frustrating issue, no question about it. Probably due to actuarial assumptions which come from someplace unknown to us. All right, anyone else? If not, I just have a couple of things. One, I'm compelled to say that, first of all, Commissioner Hennessy and I were fortunate to present at the Polish Festival, and I will have to acknowledge her Polish is much better than mine, so kudos to you. Well, we're both West Siders, but, you know, there you have it. Second, I did tell Commissioner Antor I would remind folks of the Freedom Cruise this Saturday. It is taking place up in Sparta, and the program, I think, starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon up at Sparta High School. And then finally, just underscoring, I know that most of you have spent multiple hours digging through these ARPA communications already. Thank you for your patience on that. It is our objective, as Al said, to get a more definitive process statement out for you to know how we're going to tackle this, probably by next week, sometime at the latest. And but there's no way to go from here to the finish line without a lot of work. So thank you in advance for your effort. And with that, we are, oops, I can't do that. I have to take a motion. So Commissioner Green, you will give us a motion to adjourn, will
Thank you, Chair. I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the Chair, to Thursday, September 22nd, 2022 at 8:30 a.m.
Supported. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.